Alright, so here's what I ended up with my roof. I got a big huge gap over there, but that's how it's going to stay. I'm not going to tear it all out again. It's just too much work. But I'll tell you guys how to not make the same mistakes I did real quick if you're doing not just a sub hatch, but if you're just going to do a plain wood headliner. There's just no real instructions anywhere on it. I had to kind of hit and miss, try it, different things, and look at pictures that on the Samba. But I would suggest to you to go on the Samba and look up SO23 Limba wood. Go on there and look up some stuff on there on pictures so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, because I'm just going to be able to tell you after I'm done. I could not do a step-by-step on this because I've had to rip out half of the stuff I did. So I do a section and tear it back out. I do another section, tear it back out, figure I can't do this, can't do that. Wood's not available for this, whatever. So just so you guys know, if you're trying to do the one piece all the way from one end to the other, as far as I can find, the wood is not available for that. So you need a special, what came in these SO23, if you're trying to do an SO23, was I think it was probably 3/30 seconds from what I could tell. I had one piece of original, one of those corner panels, and it was about 3/30 seconds plywood. They have it available, I think, in Aircraft, and I think it's like $300 a sheet. So but that's only 4x8 sheets, so you're still screwed. As far as getting it, what they had in here went all the way, the same piece went all the way from here all the way to the other end. And the grain went this way because you have to have it go that way, because I tried putting the piece in the other way and it wouldn't work, and it's not wide enough. So let's talk about measurements real quick. So I'll tell you guys what the measurements are. If you're going to do your roof like this, if that looks cool to you and you want it like that, but you don't want that big mess in the corner over there. Like I said, I don't know how that happened. As far as I measured it 2 or 3 times and it still wasn't what I thought it was, because I'm not a wood person. I don't do wood. I just kind of made this work out. So anyway, from the center to here, a good measurement is 27 1/4. So if you want to go from the center to there, center to here, 27 1/4, use this pretty safe number. That's where I was at, all the way from the front to the rear, where 3 foot from here to there was. Okay, the center of this support right here to the center of that support is 49 inches. So that kind of tells you that you can't use a 4x8 sheet. 49 inches exactly. So, sorry guys, I'm going to do this all in inches. If you guys are in Europe, you just write this stuff down and then change it to centimeters. Okay, from this support right here to where I put the wood support in the back is 3 feet. Okay, exactly to the center. Okay, but what happened? Something happened, and my 3 feet ended up being 3 feet 1 inch over there. I have no idea why, where I went wrong. I think it moved, but I don't know. I measured it 2 or 3 times, so go figure. And then what I did behind here is I saw pictures of what they had. They had scrap pieces of this that were maybe 4 inches tall from this support right here all the way. You can just run one piece if you have a 8-foot piece. Run one piece all the way from here all the way back to the corner and run it over your wood support back there. But what you want to do is take some of your scrap alder. So you want to get some alder is what I would use. Don't use pine. If you use pine, it'll split. If you use some cheap wood, it's going to be a problem with your supports. Because all this I did see on the SO23, I have to have supports all the way around all this stuff. Okay. If you're going to do just a wood headliner on a bus, you're going to need to do, see right here where the seam is, that's a wood support underneath there. All the way from there to the other, and what you do is you put L brackets on either side of the wood, you know, little cheap dollar L brackets, and on 4 of those to hold the wood to the metal. And in the back where I have a wood support, what you have to do to make that is I use butcher paper and I cut the angle of it like this, and I made a pattern with butcher paper to do to the center, from the center over to there, of the arc of this. And now look on the Samba under SO23 limbo wood, you'll see what I'm talking about, because they make them for SO23s. People make, you know, the wood and then, you know, make a wood pattern by doing that, and then so then what I used is I used alder to make that. So I used a piece of alder, kind of like that piece of birch. You see that piece of birch over there? It's about 3/4 of an inch thick, and it has, and you know, but I used that 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's, you could even sister some of the plywood on the sides of it if you wanted to strengthen it even more, if you're worried about it splitting or something like that. And then in the center where I seamed it, I just sistered some plywood on either side of it to hold it in place, so that when you put your screws into that. So anyway, so 27 1/4, 49 inches, 3 feet. Make a wood support across the back. Now, this is the way I would install it. Now, why did I have this not look so good in the back? Is because I already had these pieces in. Okay, what I would do is I would make the back one first, and I didn't want to take all this back out because it's really hard to get back in, and I didn't want to strip my holes out. There's just a whole bunch of reasons why I didn't want to do it. Because if you keep taking your screws out too many times, you're going to strip out the holes, and I just was at the point I wasn't going to do that. So I would make the back piece first and put it in. I would do, you know, you could do this section first if you wanted to, but before you put these two in, I would make the back piece and put it in place first, because you have to slide it in there, and when you've got this one already installed, there's just not enough clearance in there to slide it in. So but my cabinets are going to be in here and all that stuff, so by the time I get everything in here, you pretty much aren't going to see any of that stuff. So I'm not really worried about it. This was hard. If you're going to do an SO23, what I did is I put this in first, and I cut a rough opening, and then I just took my saw upside down and just cut this wood to match, because it's just too hard to figure out exactly where this hole is going to fall, because of the arch of the wood, how far you're going to screw it in, because this isn't tight against every one of the supports. You know, it might have that much gap in there, so it doesn't go in there super tight against it. That's just not the way it was originally either. So okay, but on this part right here, I'm going to go back up a little bit. This part right here, that wood support that goes from front to rear, behind that, what they didn't show you on the Samba is you really need to take your scrap wood pieces. You can put a bunch of pieces in there if you want, and then take your pin nailer and nail those pieces in so that when you put the plywood in, it has something to hold against, so that it doesn't want to do this, you know, because otherwise you'll have big gaps. So along there I put wood supports in there, and then I put the plywood over that, and then that kept it from having a nasty gap, which first it did. I had to fix this one. I wasn't going to take this sheet back out because it's just too hard to remeasure this, and I'd lose a whole piece, and I was already just too frustrated with it. It's really hard to do. So this is actually, you guys, if you think this is going to be easier than putting in a regular headliner, no. I can put a headliner in a day. This will take you a week. So anyway, that's pretty much, I think I've got all the measurements in there. These strips here, right here, are just what I bought. Was went to like a regular metal supply, IMS Metal Supply is where I went. You can go to another place if you want. That's just 1/8 inch flat bar, 1/8 inch by 1 inch flat bar. So in aluminum. And then what I did is I just took my polisher and polished it real quick. I didn't like go through and just do a super high quality finish. I just kind of ran over it with the polisher real quick, cleaned it up, and made it look good. This portion is going to be actually painted panels like down here, because that's how it was originally. Yeah, I figured that would look cool to have painted in the front and then wood in the back. So anyway, that's how you do it if you're trying to do it yourself. If you're going to have a wood shop guy do it, and you think, oh yeah, I'm going to get a wood shop guy to do it, I mean, plan on spending a ton of money. I mean, look at it, think about it. How much is, okay, I want you to think about this for a second. How much does it cost to have a regular headliner put in? You know, labor wise, for a bus. You're probably talking about almost $1,000. And so this ought to be more than twice that for labor, you know. And then you're going to expect it to look really perfect. There's not a lot of really good carpenters left. You know, you don't call a carpenter and tell him to come over and make cabinets for your house, and he comes over with his saw, and he comes over with a stack of just plain lumber like that and just sits there and cuts up all the lumber and makes the cabinet, you know, makes the cabinet doors, makes everything. Not like they used to do. That's what they did back in the 50s and 40s, is they just come over with a nice, you know, stack of whatever. If they were using alder, they were using pine, they were using whatever, they'd have a stack of just plain wood, and the guy would just sit there and make it. That doesn't happen anymore. That's not how it's done. They make them in the shop by, I mean, literally, I've been over to a cabinet shop, and the guy has a saw, and he puts he uses press board as the back, as the pieces, and he puts it on the machine, and he pushes a button, and the machine sucks the wood in, and then you stand there for about 30 seconds, and it spits out on the other end all the stuff cut and everything measured and figured out exactly, no waste. Comes out the other end of the saw, and then he just nails it together, you know, the cabinet. And then the doors, they buy those things already done, the same thing. A big machine makes them, and then all they do is put the doors on the cabinets. So, you know, as far as somebody knowing how to do measuring and getting everything just right and fitting, there's a few guys around, but there just isn't, you know. I know a guy up in the mountains who could do this. I mean, but it would probably cost me a couple grand, $2 or $3 grand or more, you know. I don't know, I didn't call him to get an estimate. For doing the hatch, he'd probably charge me about twice that, or $4 or $5 grand with all this, because this is really hard to do. So, and it takes a lot of time. So a good wood guy I could see him being up in that category. This is way harder than doing any handmade cabinets. They used to do they did all the Michelin stuff, and when we worked there, and everything was handmade for that. But and there's just not that many guys that do that. So anyway, that's kind of how this transpired. If you would like that look, that's how you can do it. Make sure you put your wood supports behind here, you know, pieces of wood to make it so that to hold this, see how it's like it goes out and it stays against the wood. The wood's there. And some places it's touching it all the time, and then some places it isn't, so it's a little bit, you know, it ends up being a little bit like that, but not that much. And because you don't want to nail it there, I mean, you don't, how are you going to hide your nail holes, you know? So yeah, you can do that if you want, but that's not how I did it, and that's not how it was done originally. You just pushed against it, and that was it. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the wood headliner. If you guys want to give it a shot, go for it. Pretty much that's how I did it. If it doesn't work out for you, don't blame me, because I'm not a wood guy. I'm trying to fix my old bus. So, and it looks pretty damn cool. I like it, even if it's jacked up a little bit. I like it. I'll ride in this thing and camp in it all day long. It looks cool. But I gotta put the light up, and then gotta run this thing for a little test drive and stuff. But I might take it over to. Pretty much figured I'm definitely not going to take it to Long Beach. It's just too far of a trip. Now the gas that's in it's kind of old, and I think it'd just be too hard on the motor. It needs to be driven around town for a little while and just let the gas get good, and then I can take it for, you know, a longer drive after the new gas gets in there. The motor and everything is pretty good. So the trans is brand new, brakes are brand new. Alright, so anyway, that's it for the wood headliner. I'll talk to you in the next video.